Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to my respective lecturer, Sir Mujibu. Today, our group will present about 4 emphases of Malaysian foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein On. Our group members consist of 5 members, which are Irene Amira, Suhaila, Nur Amal Ashikin, Umairah Nadira, and Hafiz Ridwan.
Malaysia continues to pursue a foreign policy that is democratic, principled and pragmatic, based on the ideals of peace, humanity, justice and equality. Any country's foreign policy must operate in a dynamic context. Foreign policy in Malaysia is no exception. The main objective of Malaysia's foreign policy has been to maintain the country's sovereignty and national interests, while also contributing effectively to a just and equitable international order through effective diplomacy. Malaysia's foreign policy remains anchored on ASEAN, and the establishment of the ASEAN Community in 2015 has significantly improved Malaysia's regional strategy and engagement. The country's prosperity is based on strong and diplomatic connection with other nations, as well as commitment to the multilateral system. As ASEAN's fundamental security doctrine, the offense promotes regional autonomy and the determination not to follow larger external forces to dominate. Tun Hussein On, Malaysia's third Prime Minister, did not make any significant changes to the country's foreign policy. He certainly maintained the neutrality policy that had been established by the past Prime Minister. Tun Hussein On was also perceived as being more interested on ASEAN cooperation. Tun Hussein On was more concerned, in his opinion, with efforts to deepen existing diplomatic ties with neighbouring countries, particularly Singapore, Thailand and Indonesia.
Now, let me continue with the history of Malaysia foreign policy. Malaysia has been a member of the Commonwealth since its independence in 1957, when it signed the Anglo-Malayan Defence Agreement (AMDA) with the United Kingdom, under which Britain guaranteed Malaya's defence and later Malaysia. During the Malayan Emergency in 1948 to 1960 and the Indonesian Confrontation in 1962 to 1966, which was sparked by Malaya's merger with the British colonies of Singapore, Sarawak and North Borneo to form Malaysia in 1963. The presence of British and other Commonwealth troops was critical to Malaysia's security. Following Britain's decision to withdraw its forces east of Suez in 1967, the British Defence Guarantee was replaced in 1971 by the Five Power Defence Arrangements (FPDA), under which Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and Singapore agreed to cooperate in the area of defence and to consult in the event of external aggression or the threat of attack on Malaysia or Singapore. The FPDA remains operational, and the Five Powers maintain a permanent integrated area defence system at RMAF Butterworth, as well as yearly naval and air exercises. Malaysia followed a firmly pro-Commonwealth anti-communist foreign policy under Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman up to 1970. Nonetheless, Malaysia was active in the anti-apartheid movement that led to South Africa's withdrawal from the Commonwealth in 1961. And it was a founding member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, in 1967 and the Organization of the Islamic Conference (OIC) in 1969, with the Tunku serving as its first Secretary General in 1971. Furthermore, Malaysia moved its strategy toward non-alignment and neutrality under Prime Ministers Tun Abdul Razak and Tun Hussein On. Malaysia's foreign policy is officially founded on the idea of neutrality and the maintenance of peaceful ties with all nations, regardless of ideology or political system, as well as the expansion of contacts with other countries in the area. ASEAN released its Anti-Nuclear Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality (ZOPFAN) declaration in 1971. Malaysia joined the non-aligned movement the same year. Malaysia established diplomatic ties with the People's Republic of China in 1974 in accordance with this strategy. Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad continued and intensified this policy change, pursuing a regionalist and pro-South policy with at times strong anti-Western rhetoric. He had long aspired to form an East Asian Economic Group EAEG as an alternative to APEC, omitting Australia, New Zealand, and the Americas, and Malaysia signed up to an Asian Free Trade Agreement AFTA and ASEAN Plus 3, a regional forum with China, Japan, and South Korea under his presidency.
Today, I will presenting about objective of Malaysia foreign policy. Following are some of the objectives that are vital in the formulation of foreign policy of Malaysia, which is Malaysia continue to pursue a foreign policy that is autonomous and principle based on the ideals of peace, humanity, justice and equality. Its foreign policy primarily to aim safeguard Malaysia's sovereignty and national interests, as well as to make a meaningful contribution to a just and equitable international society through effective diplomacy. Next, the objective of Malaysia foreign policy is to continue to strengthen bilateral and multilateral aspect of Malaysia engagement with the rest of the world. The country's prosperity is based on strong and friendly relations with other countries, as well as its commitment to the multilateral system. This goal was established because Malaysia's approach and engagement at the regional level has significantly improved since the establishment of the Asian Community in 2015. Other than that, as the United Nations members, the objective of Malaysia foreign policy is to advancing global peace, security and prosperity. This can be seen in Malaysia's record in United Nations peacekeeping operation, which is demonstrate its commitment to carry out the international community mandates in advancing global peace and security. Malaysia will continue to actively participate in deliberation and effort to find solution to the various global issues at the United Nations and other international fora. Malaysia also will stick to engagement and cooperation principles rather than isolation and unilateral action. Lastly, the objective of Malaysia foreign policy is to promote and protect Malaysia's interests abroad. Malaysia has established a network of 110 diplomatic missions in 84 countries, as well as a friendship and trade center.
Next, I will explain about the emphasis of Malaysian foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein Onn. The importance of Malaysian foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein Onn is to stabilize security situation in the Indo-China region with two significant multilateral agreements, namely Asian Treaty of Amity, which is avoiding regional peace and harmony dispute through friendly negotiation or court officers, mediation, inquiry or coalition in Treaty of Amity Cooperation. Treaty of Amity Cooperation had elements which is respect for each member's autonomous zone or jurisdiction, sovereignty, equality, integrity, and national identity. Other than that, acknowledge that each and every state has the right to lead and determine its own national. Amity cooperation is not interference in one another's internally and externally affairs and a peaceful resolution of conflicts or disputes. Treaty of Amity cooperation elements are members' cooperation is encouraged. Furthermore, members must renounce that threat or use of force. Other emphasis on Malaysia foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein Onn is formulated and implemented stability and peace by adoption or solution which is zone and peace, freedom and neutrality, called as ZOFAN. Tun Hussein On is still continue the implementation done by previous minister. ZOFAN emphasized the significance of Asian countries' commitment to peace, freedom and neutrality in the sea. The parties have publicly stated their intention to keep the sea free of any sort of weird interference coming from external powers and to greatly expand the areas of cooperation. Meanwhile, the emphasis on Malaysian foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein is to serve the stability of each other of the members state by doing a cooperation and declaration of Asian Concord. This doctrine that dates back to First Asian Summit in 1976. The goal of Asian Councils is to develop a plan of action for political cooperation and regional stability. There are few doctrines for the Declaration Asian Concord, which is a reaffirmation among members to promote peace and stability and progress in this region. Another is emphasizing the importance of adhering to the ZOFAN and TAC principle in promoting regional peace. Next, emphasis on Malaysian foreign policy under the administration of Tun Hussein On is to launch a global movement to resurrect Islamic unity as a force for progress. Development following that, there was a flurry of foreign policy posturing with a strong Islamic leaning, especially to Islamic countries. Tun Hussein On, who sought inspiration from the West, Tun Abdullah also followed suit.
Firstly, the factor that influence of Malaysian foreign policy is strategic location in Southeast Asia. Malaysia is a federal country located in Southeast Asia. Malaysia has two main areas separated by the South China Sea and East Malaysia, which is the northern part of Borneo Island, which borders Indonesia to the south and Brunei to the north. With the strategic location, the manufacturing sector is also influential in this regard. This is because Malaysia has an important sea link between the Far East to Asia, Europe and the Middle East. Malaysia has developed a broad and rapidly expanding manufacturing sector that is becoming more important to the Malaysian economy. Its excellent transportation infrastructure comprises seaports and railways as well as small and medium-sized firms with entrepreneurial talents. In this situation, the Malaysian Industrial Development Agency, MIDA, has played important role in promoting the rapid development of targeted industrial sectors as all industrial projects involving foreign direct investment FDI. Therefore, Malaysia's strategic position play an active role in industrial and economic development. Secondly, the factor that influence of Malaysian foreign policy is its attributes as a trading nation. Malaysia is one of the world's most trade-friendly countries and exporting a diverse variety of competitive products and services to over 120 countries and regions. The Malaysia External Trade Development Corporation, MATRADE, also described Malaysia as a key component in the global supply chain. According to MATRADE, local electrical and electronics companies are global leaders in the sector with large exports. Besides, ICT is also one of the important sectors for Malaysians' import. Malaysia is also the largest boiler producer in Southeast Asia, with the ability to manufacture and supply internationally accepted high-grade boilers. This is Malaysia's outstanding achievement in the field of trade by increasing more stable economic activity. Next, in the food sector, Malaysia has also achieved significant excellence in food product export activities. For example, Malaysia export food products that will generate 160 billion to China. China is Malaysia's largest trading partner, offering vast export potential that further strengthen cooperation with the largest e-commerce platform. Lastly, the factor that influence of Malaysian foreign policy is unique demography of Malaysia. Demography can be defined as the scientific study of human population patterns and factors that influence a certain period of time. The elements that influence are the human populations, death, disease, economy, culture, changes, and others. In Malaysia, the largest group of Malaysians are Malays, Chinese, and Indians. Apart from that, there are also indigenous people in Peninsular Malaysia who are orang asli and are generally divided into three largest races, namely Negrito, Sonoy, and Proto-Malays. In addition, the following foreign policy, Malaysia has established good diplomatic relations with Muslim countries in line the majority of its population who are Muslims. Malaysia does not establish diplomatic relations with the State of Israel because the country's policy is to invade and oppress the Palestinian people. The concept of unity and commitment to human rights has led Malaysia to vehemently oppose the apartheid in South Africa. Policy of apartheid refers to exclusion or racism. Malaysia also did not establish any diplomatic relations with the country until the apartheid policy was abolished by the South African government. Therefore, the factors of racial diversity in this country greatly influence the formation of Malaysia's foreign policy.
In a nutshell, despite political scientists' effort to define public policy, much work remains to be done toward exclusive understanding of international policy study. Mutual relationship with ASEAN countries are extremely important to Malaysia. Cooperation in areas such as trade and investment, education and human resource development, research and technology, culture and tourism continues to grow bilaterally. Malaysia considers ASEAN to be an important regional organisation since it helps to promote regional collaboration as well as maintain peace and stability within ASEAN through conversation and cooperation. Malaysia's foreign policy, as an extension of domestic policy, has thus been aimed to protect and promote the country's national security, economic and other critical interests. A network of 110 diplomatic missions in 84 countries as well as one friendship and trade center have been formed with the goal of promoting and safeguarding Malaysia's interests worldwide. Embassies, high commissions, consulates general and consulates are among the diplomatic missions.
That's all from our group. Thank you.